seven seas.
For years, Aquaman has been seen as the least important or forgotten member of the Justice League. Usually the butt of all the jokes among casual fans of the superhero community, Aquaman just never got the respect he deserved. Until now. Aquaman brings a tidal wave of fun and adventure. And no, I will not stop with the water-based puns. So leave now if you can't handle them. Actually, don't. I could use the views. I waited just about a day to write this review because, I won't lie to you guys, I was fanboying super hard during the movie and afterwards as well. I was just flooded with excitement and happy that an Aquaman movie was successful. Not to say that it doesn't have its flaws, because there are some flaws, which I'll go over, and also try to avoid any big spoilers as well. So I apologize if I do spoil something. So, let's dive right into this review. The best thing about Aquaman is not just that Jason Momoa makes him a total badass, but that it embraces its corniness, its comic book source material. Most superhero films these days only take certain elements and try to ground it in realism. And that works for certain heroes, such as Batman and Iron Man. But for Aquaman, a hero who is king of Atlantis and can telepathically communicate with marine life, that's far off from realistic as it can get. And James Wan executes the corniness perfectly. There are a few scenes that I think are gonna go down the way I expect to, but find myself surprised and enjoying the alternative path much more. If you guys watch the film, you'll see what I mean. It's really awesome and just shows that DC can have fun with their heroes as well. I'll admit, when Jason Momoa was casted as Aquaman, I was excited, but also worried. Mostly worried because I thought they were going to go for the 90s era Aquaman, which I hate. It was dark times for Aquaman, losing his hand, becoming some edgy hero. They were moving away from the clean-cut image that we see in Super Friends and in some certain episodes of the Justice League, and trying to turn him into a badass hero without ever making him truly badass. And when DC released the first look of Momoa as Aquaman, it seemed to cement that 90s era look. But thankfully, Justice League changed that, and Aquaman, to me, was one of the highlights of that okay movie. But a slap to the face of the Justice League brand. And I know many people started calling him Aquabro because of Momoa's portrayal, which is completely different than what Aquaman is in the comics. Not that it's a bad thing, it's just different, and not what I wanted, I guess. But still, I enjoy his portrayal very much. I did grow to love Momoa's Aquaman. However, I was hoping more for the regal, composed Aquaman that I know from the comics, and not just some big lug who's lovable and witty. That's my one critique on Momoa, is that I wish he wasn't typecasted into the Aquaman he looks like. If that makes sense. Still, I love Momoa's portrayal as Aquaman, even more now, especially after this movie. He is still a hero willing to do the right thing, and just seeing him in the classic costume, absolute chills. Although the women in the theater were probably more like this. Then we have Amber Heard as Mera, who was also introduced in the Justice League film, and she's a lot more closer to her comic book counterpart than Aquaman, coming off as a straight-laced, no-nonsense hero. And I know people have their own opinion on Amber Heard, but she does a fantastic job as Mera, down to her very look. Where it's at the point where I read a comic, I just think of Amber Heard. It was obvious that Jason Momoa and Amber Heard had chemistry together, because I really enjoyed their scenes a lot. It was one of my favorite parts of the movie, and they played off each other nicely. I think just about a majority of my favorite scenes from the movie were of them two together. And the costume Mera wore in this movie, straight from the pages of an Aquaman comic. Although, I do agree with one of my friends who said the wig was pretty bad. And yeah, it didn't look that great on screen, and if they can improve on that in the sequel, awesome. Even better, Mera was not downgraded to being just eye candy. She was a complete badass in this film, and it showcased just how powerful she can be with her aquakinesis. Mera is a definite highlight of the film, and her interactions with the culture of the surface world is really humanizing to her character, and shows not all Atlanteans are as prejudiced as King Orm. Speaking of King Orm, Patrick Wilson delivered every cheesy line with conviction and gravitas that just made it forgivable. A conniving king who had a deep-seated hatred against the surface dwellers, meaning us, and he wasn't wrong in his anger either. You could say he had a good reason to want to go to war. With us, the asshole surface dwellers, polluting the ocean with garbage, radiation waste, and just killing off marine life. Orm had every reason to want to destroy us. And I agree with his reasons, just not his actions, cause that's genocide. What made Orm even more dangerous was the lengths he went and was willing to go to set his plans into action. Now, I don't want to spoil too much, if this is even a spoiler because it's blatantly obvious. Orm frames the surface dwellers for an attack on Atlantis. He literally kills his own people so that they can agree to go to war with him. That's just evil and mad. In the scenes he shared with Momoa, you can just feel the tension between the two. They each want to rip out each other's throat, but didn't for the sake of being civil and their mother. The second villain in this movie, who I believe was underused, but hopefully takes charge in the sequel, is Black Manta. His origin story is explored, which is a bit tragic, and why he also has a huge grudge against Aquaman. The exchanges between Aquaman and Black Manta in the beginning are really delightful for a comic book fan, and I just hope it foreshadows the relationship that they have in the future, and also some big fight that they hopefully have. However, the fights that we did get between them are some of the best, and second only to Aquaman and Orm's battles. Still, there is hope for the sequel, and Yahya Abdul-Mateen's portrayal was a splash. No, I'm not stopping with the puns. I'll drown in them before I do. As I said before, I love that this movie embraces its comic book source material. It doesn't shy away from having Aquaman ride a seahorse into battle. However, it looks much more cooler than this. And the city of Atlantis is beautiful use of CGI. It was vibrant and colorful, and the way Mera drove around the city reminds me of Star Wars scenes of Coruscant, and also Blade Runner. The city itself was a character in the movie. Honestly, I wish we got to see more of Atlantis. They did some great world building here, and I just want to see what life is like from its citizens' point of view. But that's what sequels are for. Hoping to explore the Ninth Triad or even Zabel or other Atlantean colonies. The visuals were just breathtaking. Sure, the CGI was shoddy at times, but that's what happens with ambitious visuals. It can't all be perfect, but there are some scenes that were just shot beautifully. And the undersea water battle was magnificent. Say what you want about cheesiness and unrealistic, but how awesome is it to see people riding freaking sharks into battle? All they need is lasers attached to their freaking heads, and Dr. Evil's fantasy is complete. Hell, even King Orm was all, screw your sharks, peasants. I'm riding a fucking dinosaur into battle. At least, now we know where the Mosasaurus from Jurassic World ended up at. Now to get to the negative side of this movie. Which, there are none. This movie is perfect. This is what I would say if I was a biased fanboy. There are some flaws to this movie, but nothing that takes away from the fun and adventure experience it has been. But just things I believe could have made the film a lot better. But first, let me get out of the way the one thing I really did not like in this movie. The soundtrack. And one song in particular too. I'm sure most of you know if you heard the news already. And that's Pitbull's cover to Toto's Africa. Because 1, why? And 2, why'd you name it Ocean to Ocean? And 3, Pitbull has no reason to be anywhere near a superhero movie, let alone Aquaman. And nothing against him personally, I'm sure he's a fine person, but it's just like, why were you hired to do a soundtrack for Aquaman? He gets enough jokes as it is. This song alone could have ruined all the credibility that Aquaman has built up since the New 52. But it wasn't just Pitbull's song. Other musical scores also didn't seem to fit the tone as well. It felt like they just pulled this stuff from one of their CW superhero shows. And I'm not saying Aquaman needs a John Williams or Hans Zimmer score, but something more fitting than what was made. I mean, hell, who better to hire than Sebastian the Crab to write some aquatic rhymes? Please don't do that, that was just a joke. The story was also a bit generic, nothing really spectacular. But what brought it all together and made it amazing were the characters. It's a 2-hour movie, and to me it felt like time flew by. It was a fun experience. There are many moments throughout the movie that I can tell you which comic it came from or what storyline they're adapting, which it's all mostly from the New 52 and Jeff Johns' amazing run on Aquaman. The movie itself is drawing a ton of influence from Throne of Atlantis, with combined elements from the Trench storyline as well as Maelstrom. However, they did make some significant changes to the storyline of Throne of Atlantis. I just wish they didn't change a lot. I feel like that the changes they did made affected the climatic feel of the movie. If the ending followed more of what the comic had in Throne of Atlantis, it would have made for a much more bigger impact and climatic feel. The consequences and stakes were a lot higher in the comic version of Throne of Atlantis. I mean, the Justice League was even involved. Here, it's just Aquaman. But I still feel it would have been a lot better if they followed the comic. And if Orm was the evil villain he was in the animated adaptation of Throne of Atlantis, I think that would have really shocked viewers. Still, that's what we have sequels for and character development. Overall, Aquaman was a fun experience, and easily DC's best movie next to Wonder Woman. There are a few shortcomings such as CGI scenes that are iffy, and just where the plot goes that I felt would have been much better if they stuck to the source material. There are also some scenes I believe could be cut down, but again, the movie never felt like a drag, and there are some gorgeous scenes and shots that I as a fan was just in awe of seeing. So, I give Aquaman an 8 out of 10. A great film for the DC universe, and gives fans hope that they are doing the right thing with their films. However, there is room for improvement, and that's what sequels are for. I know I've been saying that a lot, but hey, it's true. There's plenty to explore in Atlantis, the groundwork has been laid out, and there's plenty of supporting cast characters that could also be introduced. And if you can't tell, I am excited for the future of the Aquaman franchise. And you should be too if you enjoyed the film. Let me know in the comments below on your thoughts of Aquaman, and if you agree or disagree with my review. And also what your thoughts are to see in future sequels or what you expected to see in this movie. This is Geek Knight, swimming off.